Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to the hearts of those who feel trapped in the maze of their own thoughts. We often overthink, worry, and question the path ahead, forgetting that God has already paved the way for us. It is in surrender, in trust, and in faith that we find our freedom. Overthinking is a subtle thief of joy, a quiet saboteur of peace, and an insidious veil that dims the brilliance of life. We sit for hours, sometimes days, turning every decision over and over in our minds as if the act of thinking itself could alter the course of what is already written. We imagine countless outcomes, some hopeful and others grim, and in doing so, we trap ourselves in a labyrinth of what-ifs and if-onlys. Every thought becomes a mirror reflecting back our anxieties, magnifying every doubt until it grows larger than reality. We forget that our minds, magnificent as they are not meant to carry the weight of what only God can hold. Trust, when exercised with sincerity, clears this fog. It lifts the heavy curtain that hangs over our hearts and allows the light of divine guidance to shine through. When we place our trust in God, we begin to recognize that thinking is only one part of the human experience, not the totality of it. Our minds are powerful, yes, but they are finite. They cannot comprehend the fullness of a plan that is eternal, unfolding beyond the borders of time and circumstance. Overthinking pretends to be control, but in reality, it is a surrender to fear. It convinces us that if we just analyze enough, calculate enough, and worry enough, we can shape the future on our own terms. But life is not ours to engineer in such a way. It is ours to navigate in humility, with faith as the compass. Trust clears the vision because it acknowledges this higher orchestration. It whispers that we do not have to carry the entire burden alone. The act of trust is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and courageous. To trust is to choose faith over fear, action over paralysis, and hope over despair. Each time we overthink, we place ourselves in the center of a universe that is not ours to command, and we lose sight of the beauty and simplicity of divine timing. Overthinking is a chain, invisible yet binding, linking one worry to another, tightening its grip until we forget the rhythm of our own breathing. Trust, in contrast, loosens these chains. It reminds us that every step we take is guided, every door we encounter is opened with purpose, and every obstacle is met with a solution already prepared, often unseen, often unexpected, yet perfectly aligned with our journey. We are invited to walk forward with our heads held high, not weighed down by the shadow of imagined failure. Overthinking magnifies mistakes, replays old disappointments, and projects fears into futures that may never come to pass. Trust, however, teaches patience. It teaches that what is meant for us will find us, that the unseen hand is already at work, and that peace is the natural result of surrendering to a force greater than ourselves. Trust is like a gentle river cutting through rock over centuries. It does not rush, it does not fight. It simply flows, persistent, unwavering, shaping a path that is both inevitable and beautiful. To clear the mind, one must first acknowledge the nature of overthinking. It is not weakness. It is not a flaw. It is a human tendency to seek certainty in an uncertain world. We crave control because uncertainty threatens the comfort we cling to, but the truth is that certainty is an illusion. Life is ever-changing, ever-moving, and only those who release the need to master every detail can glimpse the clarity that comes from trust. Trust demands that we let go of the idea that knowing everything will bring peace. In fact, the mind's relentless pursuit of knowledge about the future often obscures the blessings of the present. When we trust, we learn to see the present clearly, to experience each moment fully, and to recognize the threads of divine intention woven into the fabric of our lives. Overthinking is a fire that consumes without producing warmth. It burns energy, creativity, and joy. It transforms hope into anxiety, possibility into paralysis, and faith into doubt. Trust extinguishes this fire not by fighting it, but by inviting a different energy, one that is calm, patient, and assured. It teaches that surrender is not defeat, it is recognition that the universe, God, or the divine mind holds the map we cannot yet read. Clearing the vision requires vigilance, for overthinking is persistent. It returns in whispers and shadows, questioning our choices and tempting us to retrace steps already decided. But each act of trust strengthens the mind's ability to resist these intrusions. With each conscious decision to believe in what is unseen yet certain, the mind begins to release its grip on worry. Life begins to move in rhythm, and clarity becomes the natural state. Overthinking is often rooted in fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of rejection. Trust confronts these fears gently but firmly, asserting that each experience, even the difficult ones, is part of a design that serves our ultimate good. It reminds us that mistakes are lessons, not punishments, and that delays are not denials but preparations. To trust is to step into the flow of life without the burden of preemptive anxiety. Overthinking also isolates. When we are trapped in endless cycles of thought, we often withdraw from others, believing that no one else can understand our internal deliberations. Trust reconnects us, for it allows us to engage with the world from a place of openness and faith, knowing that guidance, support, and solutions exist beyond the confines of our own minds. Trust clears the vision by showing us the horizon that overthinking obscures. It reveals the paths already laid, the doors already opened, and the opportunities already present, waiting for us to move forward in. Confidence. Overthinking is like standing in the fog and trying to paint the landscape, guessing where the mountains rise and the rivers flow. Trust is stepping forward and realizing that the sun will illuminate the path, that each step brings new perspective, and that what is hidden now will be revealed in due time. When we allow trust to replace overthinking, we embrace a rhythm of life that is both liberating and transformative. It teaches us patience, resilience, and grace. We begin to understand that our minds are instruments, not masters, and that peace is not found in endless deliberation, but in quiet surrender. Trust encourages the heart to believe in possibilities beyond imagination, to see the unseen threads of providence connecting every moment, and to experience the profound relief of knowing we are not alone in navigating life's journey. Overthinking clutters perception, distorts priorities, and often magnifies the insignificant while minimizing the significant. Trust restores balance, helping us discern what matters, what is temporary, and what is eternal. It is a lens through which life becomes less confusing and more purposeful. It is the quiet assurance that whatever we fear is being addressed by forces beyond our comprehension, and that every step forward, no matter how small, is aligned with a greater plan. Trust is both a practice and a discipline. It requires awareness, repetition, and courage. Each time we notice overthinking creeping in, we have the opportunity to redirect our energy toward faith, surrender, and confidence in God's design. Slowly, over time, this conscious practice transforms not just our thoughts, but our lives, creating clarity where once there was doubt, peace where once there was anxiety, and direction where once there was confusion. Trust clears the vision by reminding us that life unfolds not according to the frantic calculations of our minds, but according to the measured and perfect timing of divine wisdom. It allows us to participate in life fully, to take inspired action, and to experience the joy and fulfillment that comes from knowing we are guided every step of the way. Overthinking may always attempt to return, for it is part of the human experience, but trust, once cultivated, becomes the counterbalance, the force that anchors us, the light that penetrates the fog, and the voice that says, "Move forward, for the path is already prepared." It teaches that peace is a choice, clarity is a discipline, and life is best lived when we release the illusion of control and embrace the certainty of divine provision. To trust is to allow the soul to breathe, the mind to rest, and the heart to see clearly. And in this clarity, the labyrinth of overthinking is transformed into a path of purpose, guidance, and profound inner freedom. God's plan is a force both majestic and quiet, a current that moves through the world unseen, shaping events, weaving connections, and guiding lives in ways that often elude the understanding of the human mind. It is a plan that exists long before we are aware of our worries, long before doubt settles in our hearts, and long before fear whispers its insidious questions. When we allow ourselves to dwell on anxieties, we are only glimpsing the shadows of what is already being orchestrated. Our concerns are like small pebbles cast into an ocean, ripples that seem significant in the moment but are ultimately inconsequential to the vast tide of divine design. Worry is natural, a reflex of our human nature, but it is never the final arbiter of outcomes. The truth is that God's plan precedes our fears, our hesitations, and our endless questions. It is already in motion, flowing with a purpose that transcends the limitations of time and human understanding. To recognize this is to step into a space of profound relief, a sanctuary where the heart no longer feels the weight of trying to control what is not meant for human hands. Every experience, every challenge, every seeming obstacle is already accounted for, already integrated into the tapestry of life that God has prepared for us. We do not have to wait for answers to find peace, for the answers exist beyond our perception, moving silently toward fulfillment. Human beings are inclined to see the world through the lens of urgency, as though the passage of time dictates whether something will succeed or fail. But God's plan is not constrained by time. It is eternal, patient, and perfect. It moves with precision, orchestrating every detail, arranging every circumstance, and positioning every person to serve a purpose that may not be immediately visible. Our worries often stem from a lack of sight, from the inability to perceive the threads that connect the beginning to the end. We ask why when the answer has already been written, how when the path is already paved, and what if when the outcome has already been determined. The act of worrying does not hasten the plan, nor does it improve it. It merely obscures the peace that comes from knowing that a higher order is at work. Understanding that God's plan precedes our worries invites a radical shift in perspective. It calls us to pause, to breathe, and to trust that what is meant for our lives is already advancing toward us. This trust does not demand ignorance or passivity. It requires awareness, attentiveness, and a willingness to align ourselves with the flow of divine intention. To live in this awareness is to release the futile need to anticipate every outcome and to recognize that each step we take is guided by wisdom far beyond our own. When we consider the lives of those who have achieved remarkable resilience, success, or peace, we often see that their triumphs were preceded by trials, obstacles, and periods of uncertainty. Yet in retrospect, it becomes clear that every moment, every setback, every delayed answer was part of a plan already set in motion, designed to prepare them, strengthen them, and guide them toward their destiny. This is the essence of God's plan. It works quietly, persistently, and faithfully without the clamor of human expectation or the pressure of immediate results. Worry, by contrast, is noisy, impatient, and often unproductive, distracting us from the subtle currents that are already carrying us forward. When we recognize that God's plan precedes our worries, we begin to see life differently. We see that delays are not denials, that obstacles are not roadblocks, and that detours are not mistakes. Everything is part of a grand choreography, a design that encompasses both what is seen and what is unseen. We learn to surrender not because we are powerless, but because we are wise enough to know that our understanding is limited and that the divine perspective encompasses all time, all space, and all possibilities. Worry convinces us that we must act prematurely, that we must force outcomes, and that we must take control of situations that are not ours to command. Trust, informed by the awareness of God's plan, reminds us that action aligned with divine timing is far more effective than action driven by fear or anxiety. It teaches us patience, discernment, and faith in the invisible hand guiding our journey. There is a beauty in this alignment, a serenity that washes over the soul when we recognize that our plans are not separate from God's plan, but are part of a greater unfolding. We begin to understand that every challenge we face, every disappointment we endure, and every uncertainty we encounter is already integrated into the flow of life's purpose. God's plan does not wait for our readiness. It moves according to wisdom, preparing the world, the circumstances, and even our hearts before the right moment arrives. This realization is a balm for the restless mind, a cure for the tendency to overthink, and a reminder that the anxiety we carry often pertains to what is already accounted for and guided by a force far greater than ourselves. Trusting that God's plan is already in motion allows us to approach life with a sense of balance, grace, and courage. It frees us from the illusion that we must solve every problem before it arises, that we must predict every outcome before it manifests, or that we must carry the burden of uncertainty alone. In fact, the very act of surrendering to this truth empowers us, giving us clarity to act where action is needed, patience to wait when timing is essential, and faith to continue forward despite the unseen. God's plan also teaches us humility, reminding us that we are not the sole architects of our destinies. This humility is not a weakness. It is a recognition of the intricate, interconnected web of life in which our actions, experiences, and choices are harmonized with forces beyond our comprehension. When we embrace this perspective, worry loses its power and our hearts become lighter, more attuned to the whispers of guidance and the signs of direction that accompany each step. Each moment of trust becomes a practice, a discipline, and a declaration that we are willing to walk in faith rather than fear. Worry may tempt us with questions about the future, but God's plan answers silently through the unfolding of circumstances, the opening of doors, and the alignment of people and opportunities that we might never have imagined. Recognizing that the plan is already in motion allows us to participate fully in life without being paralyzed by doubt. It gives us the courage to take risks, the resilience to face challenges, and the wisdom to know that even when outcomes are not immediately apparent, they are already on the path of divine orchestration. God's plan precedes our worries not because it is indifferent to them, but because it is comprehensive, wise, and intentional. It encompasses our fears, our hopes, our dreams, and even the mistakes we make along the way. It works through time, patience, and circumstance to ensure that every element contributes to a greater purpose. This awareness transforms our perception of setbacks, delays, and disappointments, for we begin to understand that nothing is wasted, nothing is accidental, and nothing is outside of divine consideration. Worry is often fueled by impatience, by the desire to see immediate results, and by the mistaken belief that what we perceive as delay is a failure. God's plan teaches us that timing is not accidental and that preparation often precedes manifestation. What appears slow or hidden is in fact a process of alignment, refinement, and readiness that ensures the outcome is not only realized, but also sustainable and meaningful. When we trust in this truth, we approach life with a sense of peace and focus. We become less reactive, more observant, and more intentional in our actions. We begin to notice the subtle patterns and signs that guide us, the people who appear at the right moments and the opportunities that emerge when the time is right. This is the manifestation of a plan already in motion, unfolding according to wisdom and love. Trusting that God's plan is already moving also encourages gratitude. It reminds us to acknowledge the blessings that surround us, the lessons embedded in challenges, and the guidance present even when unseen. Gratitude becomes a lens through which life is viewed, and worry diminishes because we recognize that the present moment is already part of a carefully orchestrated path. It is through this lens that we understand patience, resilience, and faith are not abstract concepts, but practical tools that allow us to navigate the unknown with courage and clarity. Every experience, every interaction, and every event is a thread in the vast tapestry of life, each one placed with intention, each one contributing to a design that exceeds our comprehension. When we worry, we attempt to rearrange threads that are already perfectly aligned. When we trust, we allow the tapestry to reveal itself in its full beauty, knowing that even unseen, portions are woven with purpose, precision, and care. God's plan precedes our worries, and this truth is a powerful antidote to fear. It teaches us that we are never behind schedule, never forgotten, and never alone. It shows us that the world is not chaotic but ordered in ways that our limited perception may not yet grasp. Our worries, while natural, are temporary ripples on a vast ocean of intentionality, and they can be acknowledged without being allowed to dominate our hearts. Trust in the plan provides a foundation upon which we can act decisively, live courageously, and love deeply. It inspires a mindset that sees obstacles as opportunities, challenges as lessons, and waiting as preparation. It transforms uncertainty into curiosity, fear into faith, and anxiety into serenity. Recognizing that God's plan is already in motion liberates us from the tyranny of constant doubt and allows us to step into our lives with a sense of purpose, clarity, and assurance. Every worry is met with the silent rhythm of a plan that is unfolding. Every question answered by the invisible alignment of circumstances, and every hesitation soothed by the knowledge that the future is already being shaped with wisdom, intention, and care. Doubt is a shadow that often follows us, a quiet whisper in the corridors of our minds that questions our worth, our abilities, and our future. It is subtle yet persistent, shaping our decisions, clouding our vision, and at times holding us back from the life we are meant to live. To let go of doubt is to release a burden that has weighed heavily on the shoulders of humanity since time immemorial. It is an act of courage, an intentional choice to step beyond the limits that fear has imposed, and a declaration that faith rather than uncertainty will guide our steps. Faith is not simply belief in what is unseen. It is a conscious embrace of possibility, a recognition that the universe, God, or the divine intelligence that governs all things is working in ways that we cannot yet perceive. When we hold tightly to doubt, we clutch at shadows and miss the substance of what is waiting to unfold. Doubt convinces us that we are alone, that we must figure everything out on our own, and that the future is a void to be feared rather than a landscape to be navigated with trust. Letting go of doubt is a process that begins with awareness. We must first recognize the ways in which it infiltrates our thoughts, whispers in our ears, and tempts us to second-guess our choices. It may present itself as hesitation, procrastination, or anxiety, or it may appear subtly in the quiet voice that asks, "Are you sure? Or will this ever work out?" Once we see doubt clearly, we can begin the work of releasing it. To release doubt is not to ignore reality or avoid responsibility. It is to acknowledge that while our choices matter, there is a force greater than ourselves guiding the journey. Faith becomes the lens through which we see the world, transforming uncertainty into possibility, hesitation into action, and fear into courage. Embracing the journey with faith requires trust in the process, a willingness to move forward even when the path is unclear, and the courage to act despite not knowing all the answers. It is an act of partnership with the divine, a collaboration between our efforts and a wisdom that transcends human understanding. When we allow faith to lead, we discover that obstacles are not the end of the journey but essential markers along the way. They teach resilience, patience, and perspective, reminding us that the path to fulfillment is rarely linear. Doubt seeks to make us stop, pause, and question our worth, but faith urges us to continue, to see every setback as preparation and every challenge as a step toward growth. Faith transforms the journey itself into a teacher, showing us that life is not solely about achieving a destination, but about learning to walk with grace, courage, and trust. The act of letting go of doubt is profoundly liberating. It allows us to breathe, to release the tension that comes from trying to control what we cannot, and to experience the freedom of moving forward with purpose. Faith is the bridge that carries us over the chasms of uncertainty, the light that illuminates paths obscured by fear, and the strength that sustains us when challenges arise. In the human experience, doubt is inevitable. It will appear in moments of indecision, in times of loss, and in periods of transition. What distinguishes those who thrive is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to acknowledge it, face it, and release it into the care of a higher wisdom. Letting go is a practice, a discipline, and a choice made repeatedly each time doubt arises, reminding us that faith is active, persistent, and necessary. Faith is not blind, it is informed by experience, reflection, and the recognition that life is a series of interconnected events, each contributing to a greater purpose. When we embrace the journey with faith, we begin to see patterns, synchronicities, and guidance that were previously hidden by the haze of doubt. We notice opportunities that align with our values and talents, connections that support our growth, and lessons embedded in every circumstance. The journey becomes less about struggle and more about discovery, less about fear and more about participation in a process that is already unfolding in our favor. Doubt often thrives in isolation. When we are alone with our thoughts, it can grow unchecked, convincing us that our concerns are unique, insurmountable, or indicative of failure. Faith, however, reconnects us to a larger reality, reminding us that we are part of a greater plan, that our lives intersect with others in meaningful ways, and that support, guidance, and opportunities exist even when unseen. Embracing the journey with faith is a commitment to trust in the timing, in the unfolding of events, and in the alignment of circumstances that may not yet make sense to our limited perception. It is an invitation to live fully in the present moment while holding a confident expectation that the future is already being shaped with wisdom, care, and purpose. Doubt tempts us to compare our progress with that of others, to measure our worth against external standards, and to question whether we are moving quickly enough. Faith frees us from these comparisons, allowing us to honor our own unique path, recognize our individual strengths, and trust that the pace of our journey is precisely as it should be. The act of letting go requires patience, self-compassion, and perseverance. We must be willing to face uncertainty without succumbing to fear, to encounter challenges without abandoning hope, and to continue moving forward, even when clarity is not immediately apparent. Faith, once embraced, becomes a guiding force, a source of resilience, and a steady companion that carries us through the inevitable storms of life. Faith transforms the way we perceive setbacks. What once appeared as failure becomes an opportunity for growth, a lesson designed to strengthen character, expand perspective, and deepen understanding. Doubt seeks to immobilize us by focusing on what might go wrong. But faith encourages us to focus on what is possible, what is unfolding, and what is meant to be. To embrace the journey with faith is to cultivate courage. It is to trust that even when the path is uncertain, every step taken with integrity, intention, and perseverance brings us closer to the realization of purpose. Faith teaches that challenges are not punishments, but invitations to rise, to adapt, and to discover strength we did not know we possessed. Letting go of doubt also requires surrender. It is an acknowledgement that we cannot control every outcome, predict every turn, or manage every obstacle. Faith is the awareness that there is an order, a wisdom, and a benevolence at work beyond our perception, and that aligning ourselves with. This greater force allows us to navigate life with confidence, grace, and peace. When we embrace the journey, we begin to notice that doubt loses its intensity. It no longer dictates our decisions, clouds our vision, or dominates our inner dialogue. Instead, it becomes a passing thought, a signal to reconnect with faith, and a reminder of the choice we have to release fear and trust in the path before us. The journey itself becomes a teacher, guiding us through experiences, relationships, and opportunities that shape our character, expand our understanding, and deepen our connection to life. Every challenge becomes a moment to practice resilience, every delay an invitation to patience, and every unknown a space to exercise faith. Faith is not a guarantee of ease, comfort, or immediate success. It is a commitment to continue moving forward with courage, integrity, and hope, trusting that the efforts we make are part of a larger design already in motion. Letting go of doubt also cultivates joy. For when we are no longer bound by fear, hesitation, or second-guessing, we are free to experience the richness of life fully. We notice beauty in small moments, gratitude in everyday experiences, and opportunities for growth and contribution that were previously overshadowed by uncertainty. Faith amplifies this joy, reinforcing the understanding that life is unfolding as it should, that each step has meaning, and that we are participants in a process that is both intentional and profound. When doubt arises, as it inevitably will, embracing faith provides a framework for response. It encourages reflection rather than panic, action rather than paralysis, and hope rather than despair. Faith allows us to see beyond immediate circumstances, recognize patterns and purpose, and maintain a steady course, even when the path is obscured. Letting go of doubt is not a one-time event. It is a continuous practice, a lifelong discipline, and a conscious choice made in each moment. Every decision to release fear and trust the journey strengthens our resilience, sharpens our insight, and deepens our connection to the unseen forces guiding our lives. Embracing the journey with faith transforms not only our perception of events, but also the way we experience life. It encourages us to take bold steps, explore new possibilities, and engage fully with the world, knowing that guidance, support, and alignment are already present, even when not immediately visible. Faith instills patience, teaching that timing is precise, delays are purposeful, and outcomes are prepared with care. Doubt, in contrast, seeks immediate resolution, quick fixes, and control over every variable, whereas faith allows for the natural unfolding of events, honoring the intelligence and wisdom embedded in the process. Letting go of doubt strengthens character, expands resilience, and nurtures inner peace. It liberates the mind from the endless cycles of fear and hesitation, allowing focus, clarity, and intentional action to emerge. Faith becomes the lens through which we view challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for growth, learning, and transformation. Every moment of uncertainty becomes a chance to exercise trust, patience, and courage, reinforcing the understanding that the journey itself is the reward and that each step is guided, meaningful, and aligned with purpose. Embracing the journey with faith is a declaration of belief in possibilities beyond our imagination, a commitment to participate actively in life despite uncertainties, and a recognition that our path is supported by forces that care deeply for our growth, fulfillment, and well-being. It is an ongoing dance between effort and surrender, action and patience, hope and trust. And it is through this dance that we learn the profound freedom that comes from releasing doubt and allowing faith to illuminate the way. Peace is a state of being that humanity often chases but rarely fully attains, because we insist on holding tightly to control over circumstances that are beyond our capacity to direct. We plan, we strategize, and we manipulate in hopes that the future will align with our desires, but in doing so, we often create tension, frustration, and a restless mind. True peace, however, is found not in exerting dominion over every detail, but in surrendering to a wisdom and guidance far greater than our own. There is a profound freedom in recognizing that the world does not need our constant management, that the outcomes we seek are already being shaped by a hand we cannot see but can trust. When we stop controlling what only God can orchestrate, we step into a rhythm that is natural, flowing, and profoundly liberating. The human tendency to control is rooted in fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of disappointment, and fear of loss. Control offers the illusion of security, convincing us that if we simply predict, direct, and intervene enough, we can ensure a favorable outcome. But life, by its very nature, is dynamic, unpredictable, and governed by forces that exceed our understanding. Every attempt to manage what is not ours to manage creates tension, misalignment, and internal conflict. Peace requires the courage to release this burden, to lay down the illusion of omnipotence, and to trust in the orchestration of a higher wisdom that encompasses all timing, all circumstances, and all potentialities. When we stop controlling, we allow life to unfold organically, revealing patterns, opportunities, and solutions that our anxious mind might otherwise overlook. The effort to control often narrows vision, creating a tunnel of fear where flexibility, creativity, and intuition cannot thrive. Surrendering control expands perception, opens the heart to inspiration, and aligns our actions with the flow of life rather than against it. Peace is not passivity. It is the active recognition that some forces are beyond our influence, that some outcomes are already guided by divine wisdom, and that the most effective way to navigate life is to harmonize with these truths. When we insist on controlling everything, we risk exhausting our energy on battles that cannot be won, obsessing over outcomes that will arrive in their own time, and ignoring the guidance, support, and opportunities already present. Trusting in orchestration allows us to act decisively where our influence is real, while releasing anxiety over what we cannot change. It allows us to invest our attention wisely, to focus on growth, kindness, and action within our domain, and to leave the greater architecture of life in capable hands. The pursuit of peace through release also cultivates patience. Timing is an essential element of life that cannot be hurried. Attempts to manipulate events to suit our impatience often result in missed opportunities, misaligned decisions, and unnecessary suffering. When we allow divine orchestration to unfold, we recognize that delays are not denials, obstacles are not punishments, and waiting is not wasted. Peace emerges from this understanding, offering calm amidst uncertainty, confidence amidst ambiguity, and clarity amidst confusion. Letting go of control also nurtures humility, reminding us that while we have the capacity to act, plan, and influence, we are not the ultimate architects of destiny. This humility is not weakness, but wisdom. It frees us from the illusion that we must carry the world on our shoulders and allows us to participate in life with grace, gratitude, and balance. Peace comes when we surrender, not because we are powerless, but because we acknowledge the power that already guides the universe. It is a conscious choice to align ourselves with forces beyond comprehension, trusting that every moment, challenge, and opportunity is already orchestrated with precision, love, and purpose. The act of relinquishing control also enhances creativity. When we are not bound by the anxiety of outcomes, the mind opens to new ideas, solutions, and perspectives. We begin to see possibilities where once there was fear, pathways where once there were obstacles, and potential where once there was limitation. Control narrows vision, surrender expands it. True peace allows the heart to operate with intuition, courage, and clarity, trusting that inspiration is aligned with divine timing and that every action we take contributes to the unfolding of purpose. When we stop attempting to orchestrate what only God can, we cultivate resilience. Life will inevitably bring challenges, uncertainties, and setbacks, but when we surrender control, these moments are no longer sources of panic or despair. They become opportunities for growth, reflection, and learning. We understand that our responses, our effort, and our integrity matter, but the outcome is held in wisdom greater than our own, and this recognition allows us to navigate difficulty with calm and assurance. Peace is a practice, not a destination. It is cultivated in the daily choices to release worry, to resist the temptation of micromanaging life, and to trust that the broader flow of events is orchestrated with care. Each act of surrender strengthens the mind, deepens the heart, and attunes the spirit to the rhythm of life, revealing that the universe is not chaotic, but deeply ordered, even when unseen. Human beings are often trapped in the illusion that control equates to safety. We try to manage relationships, careers, outcomes, and circumstances, believing that if we micromanage enough, we can ensure success, happiness, or security. But this illusion often leads to frustration, disappointment, and fatigue. True peace emerges when we acknowledge the limits of our control and embrace the guidance that is always present, though often invisible. When we trust orchestration, we see that timing is perfect, that resources are aligned, and that people, events, and opportunities appear when they are most needed. Every moment of surrender deepens our understanding of life's intelligence, teaches us patience, and fosters a quiet confidence that allows us to navigate uncertainty with grace. Peace comes when we let go because control is heavy. It demands constant vigilance, calculation, and manipulation. It depletes energy, narrows vision, and magnifies anxiety. Releasing control lightens the heart, frees the mind, and restores equilibrium. It allows us to act where our influence is meaningful, to love fully without fear of loss, and to engage with life with joy rather than tension. To stop controlling is to trust that outcomes are not random, that setbacks are not failures, and that the orchestration of life is precise, compassionate, and intentional. When we surrender to this understanding, we gain clarity about our role in the grand design. We see that our efforts, choices, and actions matter profoundly, yet they are best exercised in harmony with the larger forces at play. This recognition brings both humility and empowerment, peace and strength, freedom and purpose. Peace also emerges from the acceptance that uncertainty is a natural part of life. We cannot predict every turn, foresee every challenge, or manipulate every circumstance. Control is an attempt to resist the natural flow, but surrender aligns us with it. It allows us to move gracefully through transitions, setbacks, and surprises, trusting that each event contributes to a larger pattern we may not yet perceive. When we stop controlling, we also cultivate gratitude. We notice the support, guidance, and resources present in our lives, recognizing that the unfolding of events is intentional, and that our lives are interwoven with opportunities, relationships, and experiences that are part of a greater orchestration. Gratitude deepens peace, reinforces trust, and nurtures contentment in the present moment. Releasing control does not mean inaction. It means choosing actions that align with wisdom, integrity, and purpose, while trusting that outcomes are guided by forces beyond our command. It means responding to challenges with insight rather than anxiety, making decisions with clarity rather than fear, and engaging with life fully while leaving the results to the orchestration of divine timing. Peace comes when we release the illusion of control, not because we are passive, but because we understand the true nature of influence. Our actions matter, our efforts count, and our intentions shape our experience, yet the ultimate orchestration of events is managed by wisdom greater than our own. To surrender is to participate fully, act wisely, and trust deeply, recognizing that the outcomes we desire are aligned with a plan already in motion. Life becomes lighter when we embrace this truth. The weight of constant vigilance, worry, and interference lifts, and we move forward with ease, courage, and clarity. The heart opens to inspiration, the mind to insight, and the spirit to joy. Every moment becomes an opportunity to witness the perfection of orchestration, to experience the flow of life, and to live with assurance that what is meant for us will arrive, unfold, and flourish in its own time. Peace emerges in the stillness that follows surrender, in the quiet confidence that our efforts are supported, and in the freedom to engage with life without the burden of controlling what is beyond us. It is a transformative state, reshaping the way we respond to challenges, approach decisions, and relate to the world. The act of stopping control allows for creativity, resilience, and alignment, enabling us to act decisively where it matters while trusting the unseen guidance that shapes outcomes. Each moment of release strengthens this ability, teaching us that life is best navigated with a balance of action and surrender, intention and trust, effort and faith. When we embrace this understanding, we cultivate a serenity that permeates every aspect of existence. We see challenges as lessons, setbacks as preparation, and waiting as an integral part of the process. Peace is no longer dependent on circumstances, but arises from the recognition that life is orchestrated, purposeful, and guided with wisdom. Every choice to let go deepens this understanding, aligning us with the natural flow of life and revealing that the effort to control is less necessary than the courage to trust, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to act in harmony with the orchestration of the universe.